Ancestors, while we're here on this earth, it is in you that we place our trust. Help us so that our misfortunes may depart us as we are beginning on this new chapter in our lives. Help us so that we travel safely, physically, mentally, spiritually, towards our goals, towards our obligations. Allow us to trample on our enemies, on those things that hold us back, on those things that are not meant for us and block us from progression. Let the thorn sleep, let the lion sleep. And let us drink water wherever we go, and may that water fulfill us, make us happy, carry us with its strength and nourishment. May it be plentiful. May we continue to grow. Ashe.
Speeding faster across the border, every moment getting older, harder, colder, change the temperature, we in for some stormy weather. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Switch up every day, every evening. Ooh, 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 ooh. Fuck it, gotta go with the feeling. Ooh, 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 ooh. Keep on flipping backwards and forwards on ya. I don't apologize, trust my instincts. Hope that you feel me. Seems like you a nice guy. Oh, circle meets the line. I fly. There is nowhere, there is no why, there is just time. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Switch up every day, every evening. Ooh, 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 ooh. Fuck it, gotta go with the feeling. Ooh, 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 ooh. Baby. Stormy weather. I'll keep you warm. I hear a storm coming. I can feel it. Speeding faster across the border, every moment getting older, harder, colder, change the temperature, we in for some stormy weather.
Our Adinkra Studies today are UAC Kania. This is an interesting one. It's like a maze. It's about the lights, UAC lights, a symbol of undesirable technological and economic advancement. Doesn't it kind of look like a chip? from a computer. Isn't that crazy? Okay, anyway, I love this one. The first time I saw it, I was like, what? This deck is amazing. Okay, so undesirable technological advancement. It's time to take a technology break. This one could be useful if you're trying to cut off from a certain social media platform, especially. Wow, put this on so that you can remember what it's about. Even putting it on your nails or on your hand, your wrists, that type of thing, so you could see it. This one would be really helpful. Unplug from the matrix. Switch off your Wi-Fi, your smartphone, TV, and other gadgets. Sit in your space, light an Adinkra intention candle, and soak up the atmosphere of tranquility, stillness, and your thoughts untouched by technology. Also, this symbol means meditation and stillness, quieting your mind so you can hear those messages from your ancestors. And it reminds you not all advancement is necessarily good, right? I think that is such a interesting point. I don't know why we have such an aversion to marrying the past and the present and the future together and finding the best options at the time. I feel like people are always like far one way or far the other. Either they're like, I only do holistic, I solve everything with essential oils, or they're like, it's got to, the doctor, surgery, pills, whatever. And it's just interesting to me that we are still kind of dealing with that kind of thing where we can't admit that there are homeopathic methods, there are herbal remedies that work, and sometimes you need surgery. I think that this is such a good reminder of that duality that's necessary, that sometimes it's not actually easier to do it by computer or do it by, or sometimes it's not better to do it with technology. Sometimes it's better to do it by hand. Sometimes it's better to do it another way. And then also sometimes the technology is distracting you. Sometimes it's not allowing you to receive messages because you're just so preoccupied with other things. So finding that time to just shut it off. I find myself kind of doing that all the time lately, is just trying to find those times to shut it off and not be so caught up in things that aren't relevant to me personally, because I can get so caught up in things that aren't relevant to me personally, and things around me aren't, up to par to what they could be. And I'm like, oh, like I could just be focusing on what I need to do. So this is such a good reminder for the card. Today's theme is like all falling in place, like I planned it, but I didn't plan a lot of this. Like, I don't know. I feel like I keep repeating certain things, and I'm like, oh, and that refers to what I said earlier. But I don't know why I didn't plan any of this like that to that level. So anyways, I didn't remember what this one was until I saw it, but I really like this one. All right, y'all, we only have one more left. I'll be reading it to you the next, you see that? It's the W. We're at the end of the alphabet here in our Adinkra Studies. I'm super excited that we got all the way through them, and I think that's wonderful. Anyways, because we're getting to the end, I want to urge you to purchase the deck. Get yourself the AdinkraLiving.com, the Adinkra deck from AdinkraLiving.com. This is an ancestral guidance card deck. It's not tarot. It's like an oracle deck. So, and I think it's helpful for if you're trying to find something to carve into your candle for a specific, purpose. While you're dressing your candle, you want to take it to that next level with some symbols. It's helpful for doing a reading for yourself, for receiving that ancestral guidance. It's helpful for studying the Adinkra cards, studying the Adinkra symbols, and and I just love this deck so much. So I'm glad I got to tell people to buy it for a year somewhere, and hopefully as time goes on, more people will watch these videos and be able to support our amazing sister who created this deck and her business as well. She mentioned in this last card her Adinkra candles, and her Adinkra candles come with the printed already on it, and there are a bunch of them, and they're amazing. So, and they're 7-day candles too, I believe. So You know, it's a little different from getting a pillar and carving into it, or a taper candle and carving into it, but it's wonderful. And you know, she's blessed them. She's got that beautiful shop. And it all looks like this. It's just lovely spiritually, you know. It feels beautiful to look at. So anyways, that's me advertising for this deck that I've been using all year. And I really love this deck, so I highly recommend it. Hey, welcome. This is my first chop of the day, okay? And I'm gonna be doing a chop that my husband and his friends, where is it? Over here. You can't even see it. It's like half a chop, y'all. It's this pathetic, weird chop. But I found it and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of big. So I'm gonna just go for it. And this is my first chop of the day. I don't know if you noticed. But I did want to take a moment and talk with you about just the accessibility and the ability to take control that I feel hoodoo and conjure, root work, and I mean by extension a lot of the African traditional religions do give us. So give me a second, I'm gonna go blow my nose. Y'all, it's so early. I'm like not prepared for this early in the day, but it's quiet. So we can get some reading done today, and our prayer doesn't have shrieks in it today. So these are all blessings. These are all blessings for that early morning rise. Fuck, I missed the door. Okay. So, now that my mind is focused, I wanted to address how we all have so much power. It can feel like even within African traditional religion, it can feel like I'm just too poor to do this. I don't have the resources to do this. They say that there is a lot of teachers out there, but I cannot find a teacher who speaks to what I believe. And I think it's so important to remember your own personal power. It's like not only is there you, but you have a whole lexicon of ancestors behind you. You have the celebrity ancestors, because black folks just love black folks. Y'all, I saw this. Let me get on a tangent. I love Cab Calloway, okay? I love a lot of our older black artists, because it's like not only were they insanely talented, but they were dealing with all this bullshit, and who knows how big they could have gotten if they weren't being held down by racism, idiots, bigots, all of those things, right? So I'm watching, I love watching Cab Calloway, but it occurs to me when I see a video recommended in my YouTube feed that I indeed never saw Cab Calloway as an older man. And this video clearly proves that not only did he live to a ripe old age, but he was out there performing Minnie the Moocher, singing Heidi Heidi Ho until he was a ripe old man, okay? So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So in that video, I click and going through the comments as I always do, and because I like to see people's community. You know what I mean? That will at times change my perspective on the YouTuber if their community in the comments is not like, it's not that they have to be positive, but they do have to exhibit intelligence. And they, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, if it's not a positive topic, like politics or something, I'm not gonna be like, oh, these negative Nancy's. I'm gonna be like, okay, well, like, what is their viewpoints on this tragedy? And, you know, see. So this one, I was like expecting some happy times, and I got it. This young woman, or I guess she'd be older woman at this point, her picture is what, you know, sticks out in my mind. But she was saying, like, when she was young, or when her dad was young, that's what it was. When her father told her a story about when he was a little boy, Cab Calloway shows up somewhere, and the train station is lit. Like, everybody showed up at this damn train station. the first people to show up at the train station, or the people who got to be at the front, right in the front of the train station, were white people, white reporters, white, whatever their photographers, people of the dancing community. It was kind of mixed or whatever, but it was a lot of white people up there in front, and the little black kids were running up and down on the like balcony, the train station balcony, I guess. And she said that Cab would every once in a while totally ignore all of the white people and turn up and call out to the little black kids, right? He would be like, oh, hey, like he'd acknowledge them, he'd make them feel good, they'd go crazy, and they'd be just so happy. And she said that he was quoted as saying that he showed out because his people loved it so much, right? Because it gives to the rest of us when it's given, when he shows out. And that reminded me of Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson used to do the same shit back in his like high prime. Like, it's easy to now like dismiss a lot of his stuff because of stories, and he just wasn't as productive in his later years, obviously. But he was like, there was a point where he was like the alpha and the omega. And so it's like, yeah, and he also was somebody who claimed to show off, mostly because it not mostly, but also because it gave joy to the black community, right? That's like a gift that a lot of our celebrities do. They go all the way 100% all out, and it's for us. It's because most of us will never ever get to. It's typically, that is the mindset around it. Now some people might argue it's for yourself because you enjoy it, but I mean, at the end of the day, we love our most opulent stars. We love like Prince, Whitney Houston. We love our stars who lived hard and long, or as hard as they could for as long as they could, should I say. James Brown is another one where we love this dude, and he was totally over the top, lived this super, you know what I'm saying? Love black folks, right? And so you literally have all this love. Yes, I went on that whole tangent for that. Yes, because we love ourselves. We always have loved each other. And I think that there's like such a bond and such a community that, when you think about that level of love behind you, where you just have all these people who are always thinking about each other, right? Even when we go into other situations, we recognize that we're representing a lot of black people. I see that a lot, like from our celebrities as well, just because they're the people out there speaking about the issue. But yeah, we have like this deep abiding love for each other, this deep abiding respect for each other, and that goes all the way back generations and generations. So I don't think that we need to feel so alone, because there is community. There are people who are trying to volunteer. There are ways to be able to get into things that don't necessarily require you totally breaking the bank. And then there are some things that you're going to have to save for because they're important, and it's just one of those things that you need to dedicate yourself to. So I do think it's hard when I see so many people, and then I'm always like posting people's shops and stuff on Spiritual Black Girls. So that may also, add to it. I try and post like information, but then sometimes it's just aesthetic, sometimes it's actual people's goods, and so it's very difficult to it's difficult sometimes to see how accessible things are. But really, I think we need to remember the power of just doing something, just getting up and doing something ourselves, getting up and putting that just massive effort into something, and believing that the ancestors are behind you, praying to them about it, talking to them about it, running things by them, doing that kind of divination, building, business altars, those types of things, and, or altars for whatever situation. That's just an example. But, throwing yourself fully behind something and really trusting in it and trusting in that process. Because, I get really dramatic and really stressed and worried really easily. I think it's a product of my childhood and all the situations I went through. But I just do, even if it's only been like 3 weeks. Like, my like whole outlook on life is like I'm prepared for worst case scenario, even though it's really technically not there yet. And that's something like I'm working on too personally. But there are several things that I just kind of gave up to the ancestors, and then these things just happened. So I do it, like, not just happened, but I mean, like, through work I was doing, I was getting slightly more reward. And so it's like the more effort I put into things, certain things, the more reward came back. So that's why this year, when I like busted out my 2020 spiritual Black Girls planner, I hope you got your free download. Go to ritualready.com and download your 2020 spiritual planner. You can also get it paperback on Amazon. That you would just type in 2020 planner spiritual Black Girls, or planner spiritual Black, I don't even know. I think if you type in spiritual Black Girls, it might just show up. Play with it, see what goes on. But I know if you type in the whole thing, it will come up. Anyways, I went through and I was like, what are the things that, like, I want that massive reward back from? Like, what, like, because sometimes I'll put my effort into things that I'm like, oh, that's all right, but it's not like really something that I want, like, I want a ton of response from, or it's in the priority list. Like, it's cool to get response for that, but like, if I could have really chosen, I want this. And so that's really what my goals for the upcoming year are. I've been like planning them out in the planner to see what I can do about specific things in my life. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about it. And I hope, that inspires you, especially if you're watching this at the end of the year, or if you're just one of those people who knows how to start where you're at right now. That's awesome too. I always have to start it like on like a Monday or Saturday, or like, this is my last time. That's like, I don't know why I'm like that. But I've gotten better about, honoring those little commitments. So, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, I hope you're inspired to, pick and choose something specific. Get specific, break it down, make that list, and then break down that list. Like, what do I have to do this? What do I have to do that? What do I have to do? Because there has to be some sort of like work. But I do think that when you're working with the ancestors, it does help you to turn your magic all the way on. When you're working from that spiritual standpoint, wherein you're infusing a lot of different elements into what you're doing, it does give it a certain glow, and people notice. And like, I think that is what's really important, ultimately, because it reminds me of that girl, what's her name, Nicole TV, Nicole, I know she has another name, Kayla, I think, Kayla Nicole TV. We've been seeing her all around YouTube these last few months, and that she said something like that in an interview where I just saw this girl like a couple months ago, and I'm talking about her like I've been her fan. I literally saw this girl back on my birthday in July, and it's like December. I have no idea about her. But at any rate, I saw an interview with her, and I just, seen her, and I was starting to like her, so I clicked on it. And in it, she was talking about her own lack of drive initially. Like, she kept thinking these things, kept thinking about what she was going to do, kept thinking about, oh, like, if only, like, I could do that, or, oh, like, I could do that better, or I have a good idea that has to do with that, but she was never doing it. And so then that's when she decided she was going to, put in that extra work and get up early in the morning and commit to these certain things, and, do whatever it was on her little list that she broke down, that she needed to do in order to be making her content, doing an upload schedule, whatever it was she was trying to do, because she wanted to be a YouTube star, like a comedian, a singer, and that's exactly what she did. And I think she's such a prime example of that, that focus, that actually putting it out there, like, what I mean, doing that work. Because for some reason, when we have to get up at like 5 a.m. for somebody else's job, we do it. It's so simple. You turn it on, you get to work on time, or you're fired. You know this. But then with ourselves, we don't hold ourselves accountable because we're not going to fire ourselves. But I think, having that strictness to ourselves, a little bit of strictness to our goals. You know what I mean? Like, having your breaks, but having times where you are a little bit strict about it, it really comes to fruition, because you're putting in that effort, even if it's like strictly doing ritual, strictly doing your prayer, strictly like add something to be like that you're strictly kind of doing for yourself, building those good habits, because then it's, after a while, like I said, it's a habit. It's not like you strictly beating on yourself about something. It's it's a habit. So anyways, that's my end of the year speech for our chat break today. And I hope it gave you something to think about. I hope I didn't babble too much this morning. And I hope my morning voice wasn't too much to handle. But yeah, we're going to get into some other stuff for this sister. So today, for our Sacred Woman Hoodoo studies, I thought we would bust out Mules and Men by Zora Neale Hurston. And we would get into part 2, Hoodoo, chapter 2, because I find it to be a very interesting and informative chapter. And so I thought we would just enjoy that together. Let me see. Alright, so I do have time, so I'm going to try and read through the whole chapter. It's like 8 or 9 pages. And forgive me for any mispronunciations. I'm not quite trained in French, but we'll see what we can do. And enjoy. This is page 200 if you have a copy. The same copy of this book. Isn't this such a beautiful cover? It's like my favorite cover of any book of all time. For real, I love this. Okay. Now, I was in New Orleans and I asked. They told me Algiers, the part of New Orleans that is across the river to the west. I went there and lived for 4 months and asked. I found women reading cards and doing mail order business in names and insinuations of well-known factors in conjure. Nothing worth putting on paper. But they all claimed some knowledge and link with Marie Laveau. From so much of hearing the name, I asked everywhere for this Laveau, and everybody told me differently. But from what they said, I was eager to know to the end of the talk. It carried me back across the river into the Vaud Carré. All agreed that she had lived and died in the French quarter of New Orleans, so I went there to ask. I found an oil painting of the Queen of Conjure on the walls of the Cabildo, and mention of her in the guidebooks of New Orleans, but I did a lot of stumbling and asking before I heard of Luke Turner, himself a hoodoo doctor, who said that he is her nephew. When I found out about Turner, I had already studied under 5 two-headed doctors and had gone through an initiation ceremony with each. So I asked Turner to take me in as his pupil. He was very cold. In fact, he showed no eagerness even to talk with me. He feels sure of his powers and seeks no one. He refused to take me as a pupil, and in addition to his habitual indifference, I could see he had no faith in my sincerity. I could see him searching my face for whatever was behind what I said. The city of New Orleans has a law against fortune tellers, hoodoo doctors, and the like, and Turner did not know me. He asked me to excuse him as he was waiting upon somebody in the inner room. I let him go, but I sat right there and waited. When he returned, he tried to shoo me away by being rude. I stayed on. Finally, he named an impossible price for tuition. I stayed and dickered. He all but threw me out, but I stayed and urged him. I made 3 more trips before he would talk to me in any way that I could feel encouraged. He talked about Marie Laveau because I asked. I wanted to know if she was really as great as they told me, so he enlightened my ignorance and taught me. We sat before the soft coal fire in his grate. Time went around pointing out what God had already made. Moses had seen the burning bush. Solomon by magic knowed all wisdom. And Marie Laveau was a woman in New Orleans. She was born February 2nd, 1827. Anybody who don't believe I tell the truth can go look at the book in St. Louis Cathedral. Her mama and her papa, they wasn't married, and his name was Christophe Glapion. She was very pretty, one of the Creole quadroons, and many people said she would never be a hoodoo doctor like her mama and her grandma before her. She liked to go to the balls very much, where all the young men fell in love with her. But Alexander, the great 2-headed doctor, felt the power in her, and so he told her she must come to study with him. Marie, she rather dance and make love, but one day a rattlesnake come to her in her bedroom and spoke to her. So she went to Alexander and studied. But soon she could teach her teacher, and the snake stayed with her always. She has her house on St. Anne Street, and people come from the ends of America to get help from her. Even Queen Victoria asked her help and sent her a cashmere shawl with money also. Now, some white people say she hold hoodoo dance on Congo Square every week. But Marie Laveau never hold no hoodoo dance. That was a pleasure dance. They beat the drum with the shin bone of a donkey and everybody danced like they do in Haiti. Hoodoo is private. She give the dance the first Friday night in each month, and they have crab gumbo and rice to eat, and the people dance. The white people come look on, and they think they see all, when they only see a dance. The police hear so much about Marie Laveau that they come to her house in St. Anne Street to put her in jail. First one comes, she stretch out her left hand, and he turn around and never stop until someone come lead him away. Then 2 come together. She put them to running and barking like dogs. 4 come, and she put them to beating each other with nightsticks. The whole station force come. They knock at her door. She know who they are before she ever look. She did work at her altar, and they all went to sleep on her steps. Out on Lake Pontchartrain at Bayou St. John, she hold a great feast for every year on the eve of St. John's, June 24th. It is Midsummer Eve, and the sun gives special benefits then and need great honor. This special drum be played then. It's a cowhide stretched over a half barrel, beat with a jawbone. Some say a man, but I think they do not know. I think the jawbone of an ass or a cow. She hold the feast of St. John's partly because she is a Catholic and partly because of hoodoo. The ones around her altar fix everything for the feast. Nobody see Marie Laveau for 9 days before the feast, but when the great crowd of people on the feast call upon her, she would rise out of the waters of the lake with a great communion candle burning upon her head, and another in each one of her hands. She walked upon the waters to the shore. As a little boy, I saw her myself. When the feast was over, she went back into the lake, and nobody saw her for 9 days again. On the feast that I saw her open the waters, she looked hard at me and nodded her head so that her tignon shook. Then I knew I was called to take up her work. She was very old, and I was a lad of 17. Soon I went to wait upon her altar, both on St. Anne Street and her house on Bayou St. John's. The rattlesnake that had come to her, a little one when she was also young, was very huge. He piled great upon his altar and did nothing from the food set before him. One night he sang, and Marie Laveau called me from my sleep to look at him and see. "Look well, Turner," she told me. "No one shall hear and see such as this for many centuries." She went to her great altar and made great ceremony. The snake finished his song and seemed to sleep. She drove me back to my bed and went again to her altar. The next morning the great snake was not at his altar. His hide was before the great altar, stuffed with spices and things of power. Never did I know what became of his flesh. It is said that the snake went off to the woods alone after the death of Marie Laveau, but they don't know. This is his skin that I wear around my shoulders whenever I reach for power. 3 days, Marie, she sat at the altar with a great sun candle burning and shining in her face. She set the water upon the altar and turned to the window and looked upon the lake. The sky grew dark. The lightning raced to the 17 quarters of the heavens, and the lake heaved like a mighty herd of cattle rolling in a pasture. The house shook with the earth. She told me, "You are afraid. That is right, you should fear. Go to your own house and build an altar. Power will come." So I hurried to my mother's house and told them. Some who loved her hurried out to Bayou St. John and tried to enter the house, but she tried hard to send them off. They beat upon the door, but she will not open. The terrible, strong wind at last tore the house away and set it in the lake. The thunder and lightning grew greater. Then the loving ones, finding a boat, went out to where her house floats on one side and break a window to bring her out, but she begs, "No, please no," she tells them. "I want to die here in the lake." But they would not permit her. She did not wish their destruction, so she allowed herself to be drawn from her altar in the lake. And the wind, the thunder, and lightning, and the water all ceased that moment she set foot on dry land. That night she also sang a song and is dead, yes, so I have the snake skin and do works with the power she leave me. How did Marie Laveau do her work? I asked, feeling that I had gotten a little closer to him. She go to her great altar and seek until she become the same as the spirit. Then she come out into the room where she listens to them that come to ask. When they finish, she answer them as a god. If a lady have a bad enemy and come to her, she go into her altar room, and when she come out and take her seat, the lady will say to her, "O good mother, I come to you with my heart bowed down and my shoulders drooping, my spirits broken, for an enemy has sorely tried me, has caused my loved ones to leave me, has taken from me my worldly goods and my gold, has spoken meanly of me, and caused my friends to lose faith in me. On my knees I pray to you, good mother, that you will cause confusion to reign in the house of my enemy, and that you will take their power from them and cause them to be unsuccessful." Marie Laveau is not a woman when she answers the one who asks. No, she is a god, yes. Whatever she say, it will come so. She say, "O my daughter, I've heard your woes and your pains and tribulations, and in the depths of the wisdom of the gods, I will help you find peace and happiness. It is written that you will take of the 4 thieves' vinegar for him, and you will dip into it a sheet of pure parchment paper, and on this sheet you will write the names of your enemies, and send it to the house of your enemies, tightly sealed with the wax of the porcupine plant. Then when the sun shall have risen and gone down 3 times, you will take of the water of Mars, called war water, and in front of the house of your enemy you will sprinkle it. This you will do as you pass by. If it be a woman, you will take the egg of a guinea fowl, and put it in the powder of the fruit of cayenne and the dust of gopher, and you will set it on the fire in your own house. In clear water for the skies you will boil it until it shall be hard. This you will do so that there shall be no fruit from her womb. And you shall take of the damnation powders 2 drachmas, and the water powders 2 drachmas, and make a package of it, and send it to the home of the one who has spoken badly of you, and has treated you mean, so that damnation and trouble shall be on the head of your enemy, and not on you. You will do this so that you will undo your enemies, and you will take the power to harm you away from your enemies. O daughter, you go in peace, and do the work required of you, so that you will have rest and comfort from your enemies, and that they will not have the power to harm you, and lower you in the sight of your people, and belittle you in the sight of your friends. So be it. By the time that Turner had finished his recitation, he wasn't too conscious of me. In fact, he gave me the feeling that he was just speaking, but not for my benefit. He was away, off somewhere. He made a final dramatic gesture with open hands and hushed for a minute. Then he sank deeper into himself and went on. But when she put the last curse on a person, it would be better if the man was dead, yes. With an impatient gesture, he signaled me not to interrupt him. She set the altar for the curse with black candles that have been dressed in vinegar. She would write the name of that person to be cursed on the candle with a needle. Then she placed 15 cents in the lap of death upon the altar to pay the spirit to obey her orders. Then she placed her hands flat upon the table and say the curse prayer. To the man, God, O great one, I have been sorely tried by my enemies, and have been blasphemed and lied against. My good thoughts and my honest actions have been turned to bad actions and dishonest ideas. My home has been disrespected. My children have been cursed and ill-treated. My dear ones have been backbitten and their virtue questioned. O man, God, I beg that I ask for my enemies shall come to pass. That the south wind shall scorch their bodies and make them wither, and shall not be tempered to them. That the north wind shall freeze their blood and numb their muscles, and that it shall not be tempered to them. That the west wind shall blow away their life's breath, and will not leave their hair grow, and that their fingernails shall fall off and their bones shall crumble. That the east wind shall make their mind grow dark, their sight shall fail, and their seed dry up, so that they shall not multiply. I ask that their fathers and mothers from their furthest generation will not intercede for them before the great throne, and the wombs of their women shall not bear fruit except for strangers, and that they shall become extinct. I pray that the children who may come shall be weak of mind and paralyzed of the limb, and that they themselves shall curse them in their turn forever turning the breath of life into their bodies. I pray that disease and death shall be forever with them, and that their worldly goods shall not prosper, and that their crops shall not multiply, and that their cows, their sheep, their hogs, and all their living beasts shall die of starvation and thirst. I pray that their house shall be unroofed, and that the rain, the thunder, and lightning shall find the innermost recesses of their home, and that the foundation shall crumble, and the floods tear it asunder. I pray that the sun shall not shed its rays on them in benevolence, but instead it shall beat down on them, and burn them and destroy them. I pray that the moon shall not give them peace, but instead shall deride them, decry them, and cause their minds to shrivel. I pray that their friends shall betray them, and cause them loss of power, of gold, and of silver, and that their enemies shall smite them until they beg for mercy, which shall not be given to them. I pray that their tongues shall forget how to speak in sweet words, and that it shall be paralyzed, and that all about them will be desolation, pestilence, and death. O man God, I ask you for all these things because they have dragged me in the dust, destroyed my good name, broken my heart, and caused me to curse the day that I was born. So be it. Turner again made the gesture with his hands that meant the end. Then he sat in a dazed silence. My own spirits had been falling all during the terrible curse, and he did not have to tell me to be quiet during this time. After a long period of waiting, I rose to go. "The spirit says you come back tomorrow," he breathed as I passed his knees. I nodded that I had heard and went out. The next day, he began to prepare me for my initiation ceremony, for rest assured that no one may approach the altar without the crown, and none may wear the crown of power without preparation. It must be earned. And what is this crown of power? Nothing definite and material. Turner crowned me with a consecrated snakeskin. I have been crowned in other places with flowers, with ornamental paper, with cloth, with sycamore bark, with eggshells. It is the meaning, not the material, that counts. The crown without the preparation means no more than a college diploma without the 4 years' work. This preparation period is akin to that of all mystics. Clean living, even to clean thoughts. A sort of going to the wilderness in the spirit. The details do not matter. My 9 days being up and possessed of the 3 snakeskins and the new underwear required, I entered Turner's house as an inmate to finish the last 3 days of my novitiate. Turner had become so sure of my fitness as a hoodoo doctor that he would accept no money from me, except what was necessary to defray the actual costs of the ceremony. So I ate my final meal before 6 o'clock of the evening before, and went to bed for the last time with my right stocking on and my left leg bare. I entered the old pink stucco house in the Laveau at 9 o'clock in the morning with a parcel of needed things. Turner placed the new underwear on the big altar, prepared the couch with the snakeskin cover upon which I was to lie for 3 days. With the help of other members of the College of Hoodoo Doctors called together to initiate me, the snakeskins I had brought were made into garments for me to wear. One was coiled into a high headpiece, the crown. One had loops attached to slip onto my arm so that it could be worn as a shawl, and the other was made into a girdle for my loins. All places have significance. These garments were placed on the small altar in the corner, the throne of the snake. The great one was called upon to enter the garments and dwell there. I was made ready, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, naked as I came into the world, I was stretched face downward, my navel to the snakeskin cover, and began making my 3-day search for the spirit, that he might accept me or reject me according to his will. 3 days my body must lie silent and fasting, while my spirit went wherever spirits must go, to seek answers never given to men as men. I could have no food, but a pitcher of water was placed at a small table at the head of the couch, so that my spirit might not waste time in search of water, which should be spent in search of the power giver. The spirit must have water, and if none had been provided, it would wander in search of it. And evil spirits might attack it as it wandered about dangerous places. If it should be seriously injured, it might never return to me. For 69 hours I lay there. I had 5 psychic experiences and awoke at last with no feeling of hunger, only one of exaltation. I opened my eyes because Turner called me. He stood before the great altar dressed ceremoniously. 5 others were there with him. "Seeker, come," Turner called. I made to rise and go to him. Another laid his hand upon me lightly, restraining me from rising. "How must I come?" he asked in my behalf. "You must come to the spirit across running water," Turner answered in a sort of chant. So a tub was placed beside the bed. I was assisted to my feet and led to the tub. 2 men poured water into the tub while I stepped into it and out again on the other side. "She has crossed the dangerous stream in search of the spirit," the one who spoke for me chanted. "The spirit does not know her name. What is she called?" She has no name but what the Spirit gives. I see her conquering and accomplishing with the lightning and making her road with thunder. She shall be called the rain bringer. I was stretched again upon the couch. Turner approached me with two brothers, one on either side of him. One held a small paintbrush dipped in yellow, and the other bore one dipped in red. With ceremony, Turner painted the lightning symbol down my back from right shoulder to left hip. This was to be my sign forever. The Great One was to speak to me in storms. I was now dressed in the new underwear, and a white veil was placed over my head, covering my face, and I was seated in a chair. After I was dressed, a pair of eyes was painted on my cheeks, as a sign that I could see in more ways than one. The sun was painted on my forehead. Many came into the room and performed ceremonial acts, but none spoke to me, nor could I speak to them while the veil covered my face. Turner cut the little finger on my right hand and caught the gushing blood in a wine cup. He added wine and mixed it with the blood. Then he and all the other 5 leaders let blood from themselves also and mixed it with the wine in another glass. I was led to drink from the cup containing their mingled bloods, and each of them in turn, beginning with Turner, drank mine. At high noon, I was seated at the splendid altar. It was dressed in the center with a huge communion candle with my name upon it set in sand, 5 large iced cakes in different colors, a plate of honeyed St. Joseph's bread, a plate of serpent-shaped breads, spinach and egg cakes fried in olive oil, breaded Chinese okra fried in olive oil, roast veal and wine, 2 huge yellow bouquets, 2 red bouquets, and 2 white bouquets, and 36 yellow tapers, and a bottle of holy water. Turner seated me and stood behind me with his ceremonial hat upon his head, and the crown of power in his hand. Spirit, I ask you to take her. Do you hear me, Spirit? Will you take her? Spirit, I want you to take her. She is worthy. He held the crown poised above my head for a full minute. A profound silence held the room. Then he lifted the veil from my face and let it fall behind my head and crowned me with power. He lit my candle for me. But from then on, I might be a candle lighter myself. All the candles were reverently lit. We all sat down and ate the feast. First, a glass of blessed oil was handed me by Turner. Drink this without tasting it. I gulped it down, and he took the glass from my hand, took a sip of the little that remained. Then he handed it to the brother at his right, who did the same, until it went around the table. Eat first the spinach cakes, Turner exhorted, and we did. Then the meal began. It was full of joy and laughter, even though we knew that the final ceremony waited only for the good hour of 12 midnight. About 10 o'clock, we all piled into the old Studebaker sedan, all but Turner, who led us on a truck. Out road number 61, we rattled until a certain spot was reached. The truck was unloaded beside the road and sent back to town. It was a little after 11. The swamp was dismal and damp, but after some stumbling walking, we came to a little glade deep in the wood near the lake. A candle was burning at each of the 4 corners of the clearing, representing the 4 corners of the world and the 4 winds. I could hear the occasional slap of the water. With a whispered chant, some twigs were gathered and tied into a broom. Some pine straw was collected. The sheets of typing paper I had been urged to bring were brought out, and 9 sheets were blessed, and my petition written 9 times on each sheet by the light from a shaded lantern. The crate containing the black sheep was opened, and the sheep led forward into the center of the circle. He stood there dazedly while the chant of strange syllables rose. I asked Turner the words, but he replied that in good time I would know what to say. It was not to be taught. If nothing came, to be silent. The head and withers of the sheep were stroked as the chanting went on. Turner became more and more voluble. At last, he seized the straw and stuffed some into the sheep's nostrils. The animal struggled. A knife flashed, and the sheep dropped to its knees, then fell prone with its mouth open in a weak cry. My petition was thrust into its throat, that he might cry it to the Great One. The broom was seized and dipped into the blood from the slit throat, and the ground swept vigorously, back and forth to the length of the dying sheep. It was swept from the four winds towards the center. The sweeping went as long as the blood gushed. Earth, the mother of the Great One and us all, has been appeased. With a sharp stick, Turner traced the outline of the sheep, and the digging commenced. The sheep was never touched. The ground was dug from under him so that his body dropped down into the soil. He was covered with 9 sheets of paper, bearing the petition and the earth heaped upon him. A white candle was set upon the grave, and we straggled back to the road and the Studebaker. I studied under Turner 5 months and learned all of the Laveau routines. But in this book, all the works of any doctor cannot be given. Thank you for joining me. I'm Sacred Woman Practitioner Tatami, and I encourage you to go to patreon.com/Sacred Sister Circle to check out all the other goodies I have for people who are going through this journey. It's $1 or more, depending on how generous you're feeling for all this, these sister circles we've had for this year. We're going to have a slight change in curriculum next year, but I think it's going to still be a really wonderful experience for us all. So, yes, also go to ritualready.com and get your free 2020 spiritual planner. If it's not 2020 anymore when you're watching this, don't worry, because I plan to do this every year for at least the next few years. So you'll be able to get a spiritual planner each year for free, but also you can pay for the planner in paperback as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this time. I'll see you next video. I have a few more good ones planned. And may your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads. What a chapter, right? What a excerpt from this book. I think we'll be reading. I just put this in for another chapter in this book, so we'll get to that one in the next video. But I mean, I think this one has just so many lessons. Even if you you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say about it. It just, you know, even if you don't have that specific, you know, circumstance, it still has so many lessons. For example, her choosing to stay, her choosing to persist, to keep going down a path that, you know, she knew was right for her, and to gain respect is what I'm saying, because she knew it wasn't that she was, like, not prepared for this path, which sometimes that's what the situation is. She knew it was that she was just some new random person who needed to gain someone else's respect as someone with more power, an elder, what have you. And I think that her humble attitude was really ultimately what gets her so far. She's a wonderful people person. She's intuitive, and that really helps Zora, you know, with connecting with people, which is so impressive. And that ending always kind of breaks my heart, especially when you think about how Zora ended up passing on so many years later. You know, it begs to wonder what would have been different if she had decided to stay in New Orleans and run this spiritual shop, you know, carrying on this tradition in New Orleans. She might have, you know, had different opportunities, but then she wasn't supposed to be, you know, a botanica owner, a spiritual shop owner, you know, what have you. She wasn't meant to do that necessarily. She was meant to spread information through her written work, and it's so invaluable, right? So, at any rate, I think this one is also so important because it reminds us, I love how they were talking about the crown, how it doesn't matter what the crown is made of. Um, I I think that, the curses, that was such a powerful prayer, and that, reminds you, well, I mean, that could be used if somebody ever really does try and destroy you. And is a very serious prayer. I mean, obviously, like she said, that curse, it made her feel down. Like, the further she heard it, the more she was like, you don't have to tell me not to speak right now. So I thought that was, like, really funny. Like, that she said that, because I was like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I probably wouldn't say much when somebody was going through that either. But it reminds you of the authority that you can speak with your prayers, the things you can ask for, and it can be the total opposite direction. Hopefully most of your prayers are actually prayers and not cursing people, cursing up a store or whatever. But it just shows you, like, it was just a long, powerful prayer. And I think it's such a beautiful example of what, could be either way, or for different situations, different circumstances. What else did I really love in that? I mean, like, I tried to pause when I read, like, more profound things. There was one thing that I wished I had paused at, but I forgot what it was already. But after I read it, I was like, oh, that was so good too. Let me see. Here we go. Oh, wait, I want to show you this picture. Isn't that beautiful? With the lightning on her back. Oh, just amazing. I don't know who made the illustrations in this. Oh, by Miguel Covarrubias. He did a wonderful job. But let me see here real quick. Sorry. I'm trying to see if I can find the part that I really like. Oh, I also like that he refused to kill the guy. I like that he, you know, went for just sending him away. And right, remember, we've talked about that before, blessing your enemies so that they may have a situation somewhere else that takes them to Timbuktu and keeps them so happy in Timbuktu that they never think about you or come back to you again. The feast sounded spectacular, sounded so opulent and beautiful. I thought it was interesting that they started the meal with something green. I wonder if the spinach patties or whatever, spinach cakes, I wonder if that has any relation to, eating greens in the new year. It's like the beginning, eating that green thing for prosperity or something, I don't know. But yeah, I can't even remember what that thing was that I was thinking of. But yeah, and I also thought that the mentioning of the sacrificing of the animals was super important too. Because, a lot of times it's painted as this, like, senseless act or, whatever, which is interesting because trophy hunting is still, like, has a huge number of supporters, but actually sacrificing an animal for a spiritual cause is seen as useless. And then also, the whole complex around animals in the first place. I'm not, like, somebody who thinks we should be sacrificing animals for everything, but I also think that it has its place in African traditional religion. So I thought that was she painted an interesting image of what that's all about, especially that nighttime going out into the swamp at like 10 o'clock at night, and like everybody's there, and there's four corners have the candles lit already. And I was like, wow, this is such a huge production. Like, it just goes to show it's such a community effort to initiate somebody. It requires so many people showing up on time, willing to do their part. And I think that was such a beautiful example of kind of just like of the way we can all come together to create these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if is everybody there paid, or is this like a spiritual thing where everybody showed up and showed out for the community to continue to spread these traditions? Because, you know, I just think that was gave me something to think about. My husband's brother. He hate me, make all the trouble he can, the woman said in a tone so even and dull that it was hard to believe she meant what she said. He must leave this town or die. Yes, it is much better if he is dead. Then she burst out, yeah, he should be dead long time ago, long before he spy upon me, before he tell lies. I should be very happy for his funeral. Oh, I can feel the great hate around you, Turner said. It follow you everywhere, but I kill nobody. I send him away if you want, so he never come back. I put guards along the road in the spirit world, and these he cannot pass, no. When he go, never will he come back to New Orleans. You see him no more. He will be forgotten, and all his works. Then I'm satisfied, yes, the woman said. When will you send him off? I asked the spirit. You'll know. She paid him, and he sent her off, and Turner went to his snake altar and sat in silence for a long time. When he arose, he sent me out to buy 9 black chickens and some 4 thieves' vinegar. He himself went out and got 9 small sticks, upon which he had me write the troublesome brother-in-law's name, 1 time on each stick. At 10 that night, we went out into the small interior court so prevalent in New Orleans and drove 9 stakes into the ground. The left leg of a chicken we tied to each stake. Then a fire was built with the 9 sticks on which the name had been written. The ground was sprinkled all over with 4 thieves' vinegar, and Turner began his dance. From the fire to the circle of fluttering chickens and back again to the fire, the feathers were picked from the heads of the chickens in the frenzy of the dance and scattered to the 4 winds. He called the victim's name each time as he whirled 3 times with the chicken's head feathers in his hand, then he flung them far. The terrified chickens flopped and fluttered frantically in the dim firelight. I had been told to keep up the chant of the victim's name in rhythm and to beat the ground with the stick. This I did with fervor, and Turner danced on. One by one, the chickens were seized and killed by having their heads pulled off, but Turner was in such a condition with his whirling and dancing that he seemed in a hypnotic state. When the last fowl was dead, Turner drank a great draught of wine and sank before the altar. When he arose, we gathered some ashes from the fire, sprinkled the bodies of the dead chickens, and I was told to get out of the car. We drove out one of the main highways for a mile and threw one of the chickens away. Then another mile and another chicken until the 9 dead chickens had been disposed of. The spirits of the dead chickens had been instructed to never let the troublemaker pass inward to New Orleans again after he had passed them going out. One day, Turner told me that he had taught me all that he could, and he was quite satisfied with me. He wanted me to stay and work with him as a partner. He said that soon I would be in possession of the entire business, for the spirit had spoken to him and told him that I was the last doctor that he would make. That 1 year and 79 days from then, he would die. He wanted me to stay with him to the end. It has been a great sorrow to me that I could not say yes. 5 months and learned all of the Laveau routines, but in this book, all the works of any doctor cannot be given. However, we performed several of Turner's own routines. Once a woman, an excited, angry woman, wanted something done to keep her husband true. So she came and paid Turner gladly for his service. Turner took a piece of string that had been treated at the altar and gave it to the woman. Measure the man where I tell you, but he must never know. Measure him in his sleep, then fetch back the string to me. The next day, the woman came at 10 o'clock instead of 9, as Turner had told her, so he made her wait until 12, that being a good hour. 12 is one of the benign hours of the day, while 10 is a malignant hour. Then Turner took the string and tied 9 knots in it, and tied it to a larger piece of string, which he then tied about her waist. She was completely undressed for the ceremony, and Turner cut some hair from under her left armpit and some from the right side of the groin and put it together. Then he cut from the right armpit and a tuft from the left groin, and it was all placed on the altar and burned in a votive light, with the wish that her husband to love her and forget all others. She went away quite happy. She was so satisfied with the work that she returned with a friend a few days later. Turner, with his toothless mouth, his Berber-looking face, said to the new caller, "I can see you got trouble." He shivered. "It's all in the room. I feel the pain of it. Anger. Malice. Tell me, who is this man you so fight with?"